Hey, what's up? It's Sunday morning. I'm still in snoozy mode, but have been checking out like all of the stats that have been coming in from Spotify and other places on "Love You How I Can," the tune that I put out on Friday, and generally people are liking it. Man, I'm getting some good responses, especially from musicians, which is sweet. Like, I've had a lot of musicians that are like, "Hey, man, let's do something together." It's always nice when a musician hears something in a song that kind of like speaks to them and like what style they want to convey. It's a nice feeling for me to feel like, um, just like in a craft sense, like, oh yeah, this is kind of what I want to create too. That's cool. But I thought I would like kind of talk about how this track came together and what the Logic project looks like and how I build stuff. This track, I feel like, was a lot of things kind of came together on this one, and it was risky for sure because there was a lot of like remote live recording, which is I like that. I like creating an organic sound, but I mean, those of you that are into producing tracks, recording tracks, I'm sure that you guys are familiar with the risks of using, four or five different musicians all in different places. And there's like the whole click track thing. Like, if you write a whole song with MIDI instruments or like recorded instruments or loops or something, and then you have musicians go back and overdub like at more through composed parts, that it just kind of will turn into a mess sometimes because you're having musicians like recalibrate to something that's already done. And a lot of times I'm kind of wary of doing that because it doesn't sound organic. It doesn't really lock. And this tune, that's exactly what I did, despite my better judgment. And because of like some superhero musicianship, especially on the part of John Wilmarth playing the drums, this thing I feel like is pretty funky and came together. Um, it is, yeah, I'll play some stuff and kind of talk about how it started and how the song came about. So, here's the project. You can hopefully see that. The first thing that happened that came together was this guitar loop that me and Charlie Kendall were jamming for a little bit at my house, trying to write some stuff together. And out of the jam session, I really gravitated to this couple of bars that he played. It sounded really nice. It kind of reminds me of that one song, the Estelle Kanye song, "American Boy." Has that like sort of upward lift at the end. So that was the first thing that happened, and I'm a big bass line guy. So then I came up with this bass line that I played in a synthesizer. And in this, in that context, it's not really playing a bass role. It's like kind of more on top. It's not filling out the bottom. I actually hired like a New York studio bass player to go in and play that, just because I was experimenting with like hiring professional musicians, getting into studio world where I just write and produce, and then other people kind of make it happen with my direction rather than me recording everything myself. And it didn't really work. So that guy brought back a great recording, but was like, this doesn't fall very well on a bass, which of course it didn't, because I put it on a MIDI keyboard. So I ended up playing it on bass guitar myself, and I'm not an outrageous bass guitarist, but I kind of did some workarounds. Like the low string of the bass guitar is tuned to a low C, like just really low. So I could get that kind of like gross, slappy sound that I thought gave it some character. Let me find it. Oh boy. It's just that part down an octave. Um, so that's like really the first thing that came to me is the bass line, and I was sort of recording this all over some MIDI drums, which like MIDI drums don't feel well, like super great. And then I asked my friend Jay Tibbetts to play. He basically just like gave me a couple of loops that I could use to build the whole track off of, and that was enormously helpful for me. I kind of think of like building a song like three legs on a bench, and like you can't really come up with your next idea until you have like, even if it's not the rhythm section you keep or the harmony you keep or the melody you keep, it helps to have something there so that you can think about like what direction the song is going next. So Jay's loops, even though the song didn't ended up going in this like soul R&B direction, really helped like form the sort of the energy levels in the tune, like some really intuitive, like, oh, okay, there should be a build up here, this should happen here, second chorus, whatever. So that was super helpful. And I played around with those a lot. I kind of had like bass line, um, drum set part that I ended up not keeping. And then I was like, okay, like I'm really into these string sounds. Like was listening to and still am. You can probably hear it on some of my stuff that's come out recently, like the Jamiroquai string sound. And I was like looking for a hook, um, and it came out like this. But like fake strings are fake strings. It just sounds kind of cheesy. So I had somebody overdub two violin parts and a viola part. A guy named Oleg that I actually met like doing some stuff, doing some work with on Fiverr. He was just like an arranger for another project. And this time we kind of like we did the arrangements together. Like he sent something over, and then I sent back some edits, and then he sent back some edits. And it was more like I had like the gestures that I wanted, and he orchestrated it in a way that like felt good on those instruments. So I'm gonna add those in, the real strings. There's just a lot of authenticity in there. I think that there's it's not like perfectly tuned MIDI strings. It's like, hey, this is three real string players in a room, locking in their parts. So the next thing that got added in was Elena Escudero did some backup vocals, and holy lord, she murdered it. Let me show you all the stuff she sent me. So I was like, hey, like throw some stuff on there, kind of like sketched out some chords, wrote out some lyrics, and said like, do your thing. But what I got back was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 tracks of ad libs and doubling. The voice things that she put on the track are like way cooler than anything that I imagine. These really like gospely. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna like play some of that stuff on its own because what in the world? So good. Let's see. That without that, whoa. And it really helped. Once I heard those vocals, I was like, oh man, this is like starting to take on this old school vibe, this like 70s disco kind of thing with the strings and like the big orchestration and the slap bass. And this is where I kind of like got all the influence for like, okay, this needs congas and bongos. Was going for that the Rose Royce vibe. You know, the group that did Car Wash was like going for like some of those sounds and like this like retro kind of vintagey thing. So here's Elena. These are all Elena tracks with no, like all the effects are stripped from this stuff that I'm showing you now. Just play some of this.
Books, let's walk, names, let's talk, love. You can really try. I felt you never will make a dive. Let's talk, love. Oh, damn, you know just what I like. I thought I would try, I really fight. Oh.
Just outrageous, man. Outrageous. Hire her to do your group vocals. Like, whoa, what a delivery. As soon as I got those, I was like, wow, this is, let's do what she's doing. And like everything really changed. Like we really picked up that like 70s energy. And then last, which is like, ugh, what a big ask for a drummer, is to go over everything and make it feel really good. So John is John Wilmarth, man. He took this part and worked on it for literally hours and sent me his sketches for what he thought it should be almost like once a day for more than a week, right? So like he planned out all of his fills, he planned out all the transitions to the sections. He came over here, we recorded some stuff on my drums, listened back to it, made all these like, you know, notes about, okay, this section needs to chase the click, this section needs to be behind the click, and like I would say it's a feel thing, but it was 100% John making up for my less than perfect rhythmic accuracy with all of these layers. Like this tune has like 60 tracks on it, and I was basically just like, hey John, you mind making all of these line or sound like they line up with one performance? And he worked on it for days and crushed it. Like I couldn't do that. Like I wouldn't do it. It takes so much time. But like the parts that he came up with really make the track work. And I was at this point towards the end of it. I was like, oh, these are all these like really organic sounds, like really cool stuff, but it's just like not gonna lock. And this has been, you know, this has been a great experiment with like hiring a string arranger and like getting backup vocals and hiring. There are multiple takes of things that like, although they didn't make the final recording, they helped me make a lot of important decisions. Like without Jay's drums, the tune wouldn't have been the same, you know. And without hiring that bass player, I wouldn't have decided like, oh, well, this needs to be the bass line. This shouldn't be just like a conventional thing. Without Elena, Even if I had, somebody else had done the background vocals, who knows what direction they would have gone in, and like the conga and the bongo, like 70s vibe stuff wouldn't have made it. But the thing that tied all the eclectic vision together into this like Tom Misch meets Rose Royce meets, I don't know, like all this like a Brazilian. There's like this kind of like vague Brazilian vibe going throughout. Like John brought over a surdo, and we were like, maybe, maybe so. Um, yeah, that wouldn't have happened without all of these other collaborators. And John at the end just tied it all together. So we tried some takes here, didn't really lock, and it was my fault because it was my part, so it just didn't work. And then he recorded some takes at his place, like had a really great drum setup, sent me all of his tracks. I was like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, this is cool. It was like super responsive. Maybe the MVP award goes to John on this one. This is like some superhero work. Without his take, it wouldn't be any good. Like if it doesn't groove, it doesn't matter. Like all the parts, especially in a funk tune. So I'm gonna play some of like John's stuff on its own. I hope he doesn't mind, but I'll show him off. He sounded really good. And this is without like any processing or anything, which like drums without compression. Yikes. But here we go. Yeah, man. Play some of his other stuff. That breakdown at the end. Add some of the congas. Shakers. Put Elena in. Dude, I could listen to that just by itself. It's crazy how much better this sounds if you just edit all the parts that are me out of it. I'll take credit for that bass part though. Yeah, man. So that's the tune. Go check it out if you haven't listened to it yet. It's on Spotify. It's on Bandcamp. It's around iTunes, Apple Music, all the places that you get your music. Thanks for. I've had some like people that really generously like gave me some money through that link in Spotify, just because like other friends that are musicians know how much it costs to put together a project like this. With a lot of these musicians work for free. Some of them like worked for nothing. It was just like they were all about the vision, but like still the mixing and mastering, and of course like the slew of instruments and microphones and equipment that it takes to realize an idea like this. It ain't cheap. So, and the string arrangements. This is probably the most money I've spent on one tune. I won't lie to you. And it was risky. Like I didn't know if the parts would line up. So thank you for helping making these sorts of creative endeavors possible. Hopefully, it creates something in the end that everybody can enjoy. And yeah, I want to hear from you. Like, what do you want to hear next? What spoke to you? If you're a musician, like, what might have you done differently? Yeah, cool. All right. Well, glad that you guys could hang out for a second and check out this whole process. Um, And stay tuned. Every 2 weeks, I'm trying to put out something new. So there's a tune called Rosamund that's coming out on the 19th. So follow me on all the stuff. If you follow me on Spotify, then you get it on your release radar right when it comes out. And yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good Sunday.